good morning. This is Richard Hsu, host of Hsu Untied. This morning, I'm really thrilled to have with me as my guest Katie Prescott, who's a principal at Fish Richardson. Katie, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much, Richard.
So, Katie, you have one of the more unusual backgrounds I've run across with a bachelor's from Johns Hopkins in Earth and Planetary Sciences. Tell me what you were thinking about doing with that degree and why you chose that major.
I did not know what I wanted to major in, is why I chose that major. um, I remember sitting down with the course catalog. It was a hard copy book back in those days, and going through and thinking about what were classes that I wanted to take. And there were a lot of different classes in the sciences that I was interested in. And I figured out that I could just take classes I enjoyed and wanted to take and get a degree either in Earth and Planetary Science or Natural Sciences. And so I went with Earth and Planetary Sciences. It is essentially a geology degree, but I also got a lot of background in ecology and chemistry. So it was very foundational and sort of widespreading as far as what type of math and science classes I was taking. And I was intending eventually to go into environmental policy and environmental law. Obviously have spent the last 20 plus years doing intellectual property litigation, so life took a detour.
Well, clearly. So you obviously went and got a master's degree, so you must have still liked that more. Tell me a little bit about what the thinking was there and what you studied.
Absolutely. So, one thing was very young when I was in college. I graduated college when I was 17. I was not ready to get a job by any means. I may have had the intellectual capacity to do that, but certainly did not have the social emotional skills to work in the workplace. So continuing in school was the sensible thing to do. And I had done an internship after my junior year. It was a National Science Foundation research experience for undergrads at the Institute of Ecosystem Studies. And there I was able to do a self-directed research program. I was studying the effect of invasive zebra mussels on the Hudson River. And they also brought in for the interns, a variety of different people who are pursuing careers across the spectrum related to environmental issues. And they had brought in environmental scientists, environmental advocates. They brought in a lawyer, and that was where the seed for law school got planted, was this woman who came and presented to us during that internship. But that was really the first time I had considered law school, and it was kind of late in the game to be thinking of applying to law school. So I'd already been on sort of this graduate school track and continued down that. It was very clear to me in grad school that I was not someone who could focus on one subject for long enough to get a PhD.
I was just going to ask you about your PhD or non-existent. Did you tell me why you were so young in college? Did you skip a grade or did you just start very early?
So I have never attended high school. I do not have a high school diploma. I do not have a GED. I went from 8th grade to college. I started college not at Johns Hopkins, but at Mary Baldwin University. And they have a very unique program there where they take a couple dozen 8th, 9th graders across the US and house them together so that you have a peer group of people who are your own age, but then you take a full course curriculum at the university. And so it was a sort of different path, but it worked.
So you do that and then you go to college after that, or how does that work?
No, you're in college. You're enrolled in college when you're 13, 14 years old, and you're just housed separately. So there's a dorm specifically for 13 to 15-year-olds. You have additional supervision. You have to, be back in the dorm at 10 p.m. You have a curfew, but you are taking a full college curriculum. And after 2 years in that sort of supervised environment, I then chose to transfer to Johns Hopkins. I really liked the strength of their science and engineering programs, and so I went that path.
So when you transferred Johns Hopkins, you're a junior, but you're like 15 years old or something like that. What?
Exactly, exactly. Fortunately, I was tall, so I could kind of blend in a little bit better.
Oh,
And I had been taking classes in a college and university setting for 2 years at that point. So, found my group within that. I was a
hmm.
rower. I rowed crew, and so that was kind of my family in college.
Wow, interesting. Is that something your parents wanted you to do, or did you elect to do that? It's kind of unusual.
It was a little bit of just happenstance. My parents were moving at the end of my eighth grade year to the Washington, D.C. area. And so I was evaluating different schools in that area. And I got a letter in the mail from Mary Baldwin University, this program for exceptionally gifted, and went and checked it out and figured, I was going to be taking mostly AP courses. Why not just get a college degree at the same time? I don't think I really understood the implications of what I was doing, but it ended up working.
Interesting. Did you feel like you missed out on kind of like the high school experience that all the other high schools went through and the friends and the stuff you do in high school? Do you feel like you missed out on
I don't think I was ever really into all that.
that?
So, um,
Yes,
so I don't know that it would have been a positive experience for me going through that. And, I was able to do extracurriculars in college, so I still got that experience. I definitely think it made me a lot more self-conscious and probably shyer than I would have otherwise been when I was first
Mm,
starting out in my career because, when I was a summer associate, I couldn't legally drink alcohol,
yeah,
and
right.
that's a little bit awkward. So.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. Well, that's really interesting. Well, all right. So back to graduate school. So then a lawyer came and spoke, and it light a light bulb, and you said, "Wow, this is something I want to pursue."
Exactly. Um, it planted a seed, I would say.
Uh-huh.
And the other thing that I did do was I went and I got an LSAT prep book, and I know that it's being phased out, but there were these things called logic puzzles, and I love logic puzzles. My fifth grade math teacher introduced them to me, and I used to do them kind of before I went to bed at night. It was kind of a relaxing thing for me. So I was very excited to see that logic puzzles were on the LSAT. So I thought, oh, that's a good sign. And it was more I didn't want to get a PhD, but I did want to continue being in school. And so law school was kind of the default there. And I thought it would be really great to kind of marry my technical background in environmental science and environmental engineering with a law degree and then go into environmental policy and advocacy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, at some point, obviously, that did take a detour. Tell me how that happened.
So that happened in law school. I do still have a certificate of specialization in environmental law. I did stick it through, but I realized in law school that change happens too slowly when it comes to environmental issues. And I was not going to be able to stick it out as a career. Also, the realities of the jobs that you can get that make money related to environmental law generally were not aligned with my personal values. So fortunately, during law school, I learned about this thing called intellectual property. I learned what a patent was. I had never heard of these things before. And they sounded interesting. It was also, when I was in law school, it was right around the period of the .com era. If you had a STEM degree, you could get a job as a summer associate in patent litigation. So that is what I did. I was a summer intern at Fish Richardson, where I am today. And it was fun. I had low expectations. I was like, this big law thing, that's not
Yeah,
me.
yeah.
But it was really cool. I got to learn about all different kinds of things that summer. I
Hmm.
remember like studying and writing up a complaint on remote service of videos because that was sort of a novel concept back then. And in the hallway at the office that I was working in, there were these lasers set up because we were evaluating their alignment capabilities for an infringement read. And I thought, how cool is this? You get to play with these things, you get to learn about them, and it was just a lot better than I had ever expected. And I committed to coming back to Fish for 1 year and doing patent litigation for that 1 year. And 1 year has turned into many years.
That is really funny. Well, that's a really great story. So do you feel like you get to use your engineering and science background all the time now?
So I have never had a case that has drawn upon my environmental engineering skills. However, how I selected my major originally was because I wanted to take a lot of different classes across a lot of different subject matters. And so I got a foundational knowledge when I was in college in chemistry and physics, in math, that makes it so that I feel comfortable learning new technology. And I have been learning new technology for 20 years now.
Yeah, interesting. Well, can you give me kind of like a range? I'm sure you've worked on all kinds of things, but just give me a feel for the kinds of variety you worked on.
Absolutely. So the way I always tell people what kinds of cases I work on, I say everything but pharma. So pharmaceuticals I do not do, but pretty much everything else. I have done a lot of stuff related to computer security. So network intrusion detection, vulnerability detection, how you go about establishing secure communication channels between devices. And then I've had stuff related to medical devices. So kidney dialysis, X-ray microscopes, blood draws. It's been the full thing. One of the things that I found most interesting was golf balls. I never appreciated how much research and development goes into golf balls, the different shape of the golf ball, the layers of the golf ball. And I also never appreciated how expensive golf balls are. But I got to learn a lot about that.
Do you think your clients kind of appreciate or can tell that you come from this kind of a science background by the way you ask questions or the way you dive into things?
Yeah, I think it's the real willingness to learn and to spend the time educating myself so that then I am asking informed questions. I basically feel like I ask questions for a living. So it's kind of weird to be on the receiving end today.
Yeah, totally. Well, you obviously love what you do and you found a fantastic profession. Have you ever thought that you might try going in-house or something like that and join a company and really learn the technology? Any thoughts of that?
Yep. So I actually have done that.
Oh,
So while I started my career at Fish, and I have been at Fish for almost 7 years now again, I took a little detour in between and tried a variety of different things. So I went in-house to Apple in 2010 and was there for almost 4 years. And I was in-house managing patent litigation primarily, as well as some class action and product liability litigation.
Oh, wow.
That was a fantastic experience, particularly at that point in my career. It was wonderful to be able to work with so many different law firms and see the different styles that different people have, how to sit back in the courtroom and observe those things. It was also really great because my natural tendency is to be down into the details. That is my comfort zone. And being in-house, you cannot do that. You have to step back and look at the big picture, look at the strategy, and taking that time in-house really helped me hone those skills. What I did realize during that time period, however, is that I miss actually litigating. I love the rush, the adrenaline rush of standing up and arguing, even just taking a deposition. There's a certain adrenaline rush that comes with that. And so return to private practice. I did not immediately return to Fish. I tried practicing patent litigation in a large general practice firm. I then tried itty bitty law, a 4-person law firm. And then I also took a self-funded sabbatical. So that's, and then I returned to Fish Richardson after those detours. So I have explored some other things, and I do think that intellectual property litigation is my happy place.
That's so funny. Well, that's really awesome because one of the nice things of having been able to do that, both in terms of in-house and trying other firms, is well, now that you know where you're at is a good place, and you've tried other things, and now you can say definitively you really enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate it. And, I think one thing when I was doing itty bitty law, the clients were super appreciative, but I was really missing working with larger teams, more complex problems. I think one of my real skill sets is sort of team management and kind of orchestrating the different moving parts. And if you're dealing with a small team and a small problem, there aren't as many of those moving parts. So.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, Katie, I really appreciate your taking the time. This has been a fascinating conversation, and really appreciate your taking the time to tell me about it.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
This is Richard Hsu and Katie Prescott. Thanks.